Greetings and salutations, loyal viewer. My name is Sean. I will be your host today, and today we will be talking about a case that we've barely covered for this month at all, and that, of course, is the Kyle Rittenhouse case. Kyle Rittenhouse recently did an interview on Tucker Carlson. This is a bit of a lead-up and a teaser to his documentary, The Trial of Kyle, which, by the way, I would have named Bringing Down the Rittenhouse. Not saying anything, just saying I think that's a better name. But this interview gave us some insights into Kyle because we haven't really heard from him except for his testimony on the stand, and I think it's really crucial that we hear his side of the story. Plus, there's some people that are mad about one specific part, and I wanted to go over it and address it because I think it's important. But you know what else is important? You know what else matters? Your skin, nails, and hair. We got to transition. It's health with justice. We are only just now starting to understand the powerful anti-aging effects of taking collagen. I myself and thousands of others have personally experienced these effects firsthand. But there's a little bit of a secret, something that you might not realize. I don't just go to the store and buy myself some crappy collagen off the shelf. I go to Health with Justice. This special collagen provides 5 key collagen types from 4 unique sources. In short, this blend supercharges the effects that typical collagen would have. The result? Firstly, my skin looks and feels as soft as itty bitty baby Sean's skin felt. Second, my nails are so elite that my girlfriend is a bit jealous. And thirdly, and this was the most unexpected, I have more energy to go about my day. Just look at the level of enthusiasm I have in this video you're watching right now. But guess what? The benefits are not just for me, they are in fact for thee. Go to healthwithjustice.com, and for you, this month, you will get our very special Black Friday 51% off your order of this very special collagen powder. Trust me, if you get it, your skin, your hairs, and your nails will thank me. That's healthwithjustice.com, link in the pinned comment and in the bio. So one of the first things that I realized, and this was something that was realized by me personally, Sean Fitzgerald, the captain of this channel, the person who can predict the future, is that the cross-state lines thing that I originated has gone far beyond me and has made its way to Tucker Carlson. Look at Tucker make his Tucker face while laughing at the crossing state lines thing.
She drove back across state lines, as we're now calling it.
Now, some of you may think to yourself, Sean, you can't take credit for that meme. Just because you sell a shirt with the crossing state lines thing doesn't mean that you were the first person in public to detect that this was a ridiculous argument. And I would respond to that by pointing to my first video on Kyle Rittenhouse that came out August 27th, 2020, 2 days after the shooting, that will lay it out for you in fine detail that yes, in fact, I was the first one to point out that there was no law prohibiting the transportation of a firearm across state lines, and this was a really dumb point. Now, I hammed it up later on, it got more attitude and association later on, but everybody right now is just catching up to where I was, basically immediately after the incident. Now, the next thing that people consistently bring up without any citations whatsoever is that Kyle Rittenhouse, by crossing state lines from Illinois to the state of Wisconsin, somehow committed a felony, and thus that felony is applicable to a felony murder. Now, if such a felony existed, which I highly dispute because, again, according to federal law, there is no specific regulation of transporting a firearm that is legal in one or both states from one another that could be charged in this instance. On top of that, an interstate violation would be a federal crime. Again, if that law were to exist, I've seen no evidence that would substantiate that law existing. By the way, mainstream media, left-wing media, the Young Turks, if you ever want an example on how to cover breaking news, I highly recommend that whole video. Every single claim that I make is supported by the factual evidence with the clarification that we're doing a video that I must have shot the day after because it's uploaded 2 days after, and me saying, hey, new information can come out that could possibly, potentially change my opinion because we don't have all the information in front of us. This, in contrast to the way the mainstream media covered this, saying that Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist who went there to kill black people who crossed state lines illegally and did all that stuff, just goes to show you that me, in my apartment, in my room, shooting against a desk, small-ass bedroom, with 3 lights set up and a microphone, nailed it way better than the mainstream media all the way back then, have better journalistic ethics, etc. Especially you, Anna Kasparian, Miss crossed state lines. You didn't think I was going to not play it.
Who crossed state lines. He drove from Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now, again, he drove from Illinois to Wisconsin. It's not like he was in his front yard. Yeah. And he was approached by a group of individuals who posed an imminent threat to his life. He drove across state lines in a state that he doesn't even live in, and then he crossed state lines with it. He crossed state lines, meaning he traveled across state lines. He traveled there from out of state, who again traveled across state lines.
Cross state lines.
Across state lines.
Cross state lines.
But look, this isn't about me being right and everybody else being wrong and me originating something and it going out in the world and going so far behind me and me trying to glom on to the coattails of the thing that I originated that has grown past me because it makes me insecure. The fact that people are saying this and they don't realize I originated it. It's not about that. What this is about is Kyle speaking for himself to Tucker Carlson, his mannerisms, his demeanor, the way he describes things, because I think it gives us a better insight into this man that people have projected all of this stuff on, both left, right, and center. So Kyle, in his own words, is quite the calm child.
Well, it actually started on August 24th. I was working my job as a lifeguard at the Recplex in Kenosha County, and then the riots were still going on and a curfew was implied. So I went to Dominic Black's house and I stayed the night over there and saw the videos of the riots and the arson going on.
What'd you think of it?
It was upsetting because Kenosha is my community, and I just was upset seeing my community up in flames.
Yeah, I bet you were.
So first thing that they get knocked off right off the bat, which by the way was covered and again not contested by the prosecution, and it was in reporting all the way back months ago, maybe not initially, but people found out about it, so nobody should have been lying about Kyle crossing state lines with a firearm as if that was illegal, as if he did that, or making the case that his mother drove him and thus she needs to face charges and her not facing charges is somehow white supremacy, is that Kyle went to his job the day before as a lifeguard. They imposed a curfew, and partially in compliance of that curfew, Kyle stayed at his friend Dominic Black's house. Dominic Black is the friend who bought Kyle's gun for him because although it turned out it was legal for him to open carry it, it was not legal for him to purchase it because federal regulations on firearms are what they are. So this was the guy's house that he was staying at. This was the setup to him being in Kenosha and being asked to come and protect this area.
We wake up in the morning and we're talking, we're like, let's go help our community, let's go see what we can do. And we ended up at Ruther Central High School where we were cleaning graffiti for a couple hours, and then we met with the owners of Car Source and we offered to protect their business from fires, making sure the rest of their other two properties didn't get burned down like they did the night prior, and they agreed.
So again, this is another crucial element for people to understand because crazy people are making the case that Kyle went out and cleaned graffiti, saying that is somehow propaganda. He went out first to go into the town of Kenosha because this was a town that his best friend lived at, his father lived at, his grandmother lived at, his aunt lived at, all of these people also he worked at, so it was his community. He saw the destruction, and while seeing the destruction, again, no guns, no nothing, he decided to go try and clean graffiti with a group of people. So Kyle was basically being a good Samaritan earlier in the day, not retroactively looking for his alibi so he can come back later and kill Antifa members like the media, the left-wing media specifically, and the mainstream media have been alleging. That's just made up. There's nothing to back up that assertion. And another crucial thing, and this was reported early on, was that the car source that Kyle Rittenhouse was protecting was already burned down. Now we know for a fact there were 3 different car source locations. One was burned down, one was destroyed. Kyle was talking to the owners of the other 2, or somebody with Kyle was talking to the owners of the other 2, and they were happy to have somebody come and protect them because this was day 3 of the Jacob Lake rioting, and the National Guard and the governor did not do what they were supposed to do, specifically the governor in not calling the National Guard.
Where were the police?
I'm not sure really, because they have a hard job.
For sure.
But I didn't really think they got the support they needed. The National Guard should have been called August 23rd, but the city of Kenosha failed the community. The governor, Tony Evers, failed the community, and there should have been a lot more resources to help with that.
So this is a component to the story that is often overlooked. I hinted at it before, but we're going to go into this in great detail because the media has worked tirelessly to obfuscate the responsibility from the Democratic Governor Evers in his non-response to the Jacob Blake riots. Now, we talked about how the Jacob Blake shooting was justified, thus everybody out protesting was just wrong, and everybody out rioting were just doubly wrong, taking advantage of a misinformed situation that spread across the internet. But the governor could have stopped this. But remember, this was a period of time, this was a context where people were saying that the National Guard being called was fascism. So as a way to go against Trump and score political points, Governor Evers refused to deploy the National Guard to the city of Kenosha. The police, which again, they're a small town police department, couldn't really protect everything and everyone, plus the pressure on the police for what was a justified shooting was preventing them from acting. So you ended up in a scenario where they could only protect key areas, and this is why people in this area wanted people like Kyle Rittenhouse and other people who were actually part of militias or just had guns to protect that property. This is really important because after Kyle Rittenhouse defended himself on video 100% after people attacked him, again, 100% caught on video. See any of my videos where I cover this, where I break this down in great detail. There was a lot of embarrassment among Democratic Party officials, embarrassment among the mayor, embarrassment among the prosecutor, and embarrassment that went all the way up to the governor. So they decided, rather than take responsibility, rather than take accountability, rather than say, hey, look, we were trying to score points against Trump and now 2 people are dead due to our inaction, they decided to blame everything on Kyle Rittenhouse. They decided to target him. They decided to smear him. They decided to throw the book at him because if you distracted, and by the way, this worked because we're all still talking about Rittenhouse, everybody with Kyle Rittenhouse, you wouldn't be able to focus on the political and institutional failures within the state of Wisconsin and within the city of Kenosha. So that is a great point by Kyle. Obviously, I well extrapolated off of it, but just him reminding me of the institutional failures that led Kyle to be in that vulnerable position to have to defend himself are worth noting.
So you've been criticized for carrying a firearm into the scene, but it's obvious from the tape that a lot of people, you were not the only one with a firearm. There were rioters with firearms. Was that obvious to you?
Yes.
So you saw other people with guns?
I did. There was a lot of people on both, like there were rioters with firearms. I remember one very distinctly, Joshua Zeminski was walking around with a pistol in his hand all that night with Joseph Rosenbaum.
So Kyle also talks about the criticism of him carrying a firearm, which is hilarious because I shared recently on my community tab a video from Nuance Bro where he was talking about this idea that Kyle got special treatment because he was white and carrying an AR, and if it was a black person and a black teenager, they would be shot immediately by the police, even though there's video of a black father and his 16-year-old daughter carrying the exact same type of guns in the protests against Rittenhouse out there in the public. Nobody got shot, plus multiple different instances of black people claiming self-defense in more dubious circumstances than Rittenhouse and getting off. But again, another fact that is completely understated is that Kyle's gun, as we found out when the prosecution could not contest the charges just before the jury went into deliberation, Kyle's gun was legal. It was legal for him to carry that AR-15. The regulation prohibiting 16 to 18-year-olds carrying rifles in public or shotguns was a short barrel regulation meant to regulate gangbangers who often saw off shotguns or rifles so that they can make them more concealable. Because Kyle Rittenhouse's rifle was over 16 inches in barrel length, over 23 inches total, therefore it was not covered by any Wisconsin law, thus making it legal. So it's not a loophole, it's not anything like that. They were specifically targeting weapons used in crimes because long barrel rifles, and rifles total by the way, are only used in about 250 homicides a year as compared to pistols and shorter guns, which go up into the thousands. And Kyle Rittenhouse bought a gun. Remember, he was told by a cop who actually told him correctly that he was able to legally possess even if he couldn't legally buy it. And the media has just made hay about it for years, even though Gage Grosskreutz was illegally concealing a pistol among the many other people that we don't know about who've had guns in their possession with questionable legality attached to their possession of those guns. So all we hear about is Kyle Rittenhouse's gun and how it's illegal and how it crossed state lines when it turns out It's not illegal, and it didn't cross state lines. And by the way, crossing state lines with a firearm, as I said, all the way back starting in August of 2020, is not a crime either in the state of Illinois or in the state of Wisconsin or a federal crime. In fact, New York State, where I live, some of the toughest regulations in the nation, if you pass through New York State, if you cross the state lines, that is not illegal on its own. It's only possession when you're stopped and stationary that is criminalized in this manner. But for these types of firearms, no, on its own, not illegal. Crossing state lines, not relevant.
So you've never seen this guy. He walks up and threatens to kill you out of nowhere.
Yes. It was quite shocking. I was like, why would somebody threaten to kill me? I'm just asking if people need help on both sides. I was there just to help anybody that needed, and shockingly, the only people I helped that night were rioters.
So this is the other thing, and I want people to understand this when we get into the later portion of it that people found so controversial. Kyle just said the only people that he helped, that he rendered first aid to, were people rioting, people on the Black Lives Matter side. And this is true. This is borne out by the facts. A lot has been made of Gage Grosskreutz about how he's a medic, and he has even a tattoo somewhere on his body. I don't know why I pointed to the arm. I actually don't know that says something medically, when Gage Grosskreutz provided no medical services to anybody at all. He was busy illegally concealing a weapon and chasing down somebody and pointing that weapon at somebody's head when he knew, because they told him, that that person was aiming to go towards the police. So Kyle provided medical aid to supposedly the enemy side because while he was out there, as he stated that night and as he stated multiple different times, he did not view these people as the enemy side. He's in favor of protests. He supports protests. He doesn't like riots and vandalism and destruction in his community, but he's willing to provide aid to people who are injured on any side. That's the kind of guy Kyle Rittenhouse is, compared to Gage Grosskreutz, who's now getting all this cover and fluffed up by the media as some real medic compared to Kyle's fake medic. Well, the fake medic actually treated people. The fake medic actually helped people. Gage Grosskreutz, all he did was instigate a violent situation when he should have known better. He faked a surrender, and that's why he got shot by Kyle.
The police officer says, "Get back, get back, get back." One of them has a gun out and the other has pepper spray pointed at me. And I say, "Hey, I just had to shoot somebody. I just had to shoot somebody." And then they say, "Go home." And I didn't know this until...
Go home?
Yeah. The officer said to go home. I don't think he knew what happened or heard me. There's a lot of chaos going on.
Yes.
But apparently he pepper sprayed me. You can see it in the video, but I don't remember being pepper sprayed by him. And I was like, I wanted to turn myself in Kenosha. I wanted to turn myself into the police in Kenosha, but I wasn't able to because they weren't accepting visitors, apparently, with the barricades and the fence up. So we ended up turning myself into the Antioch Police Department.
So you drove back across state lines, as we're now calling it.
Funny.
You couldn't even turn yourself in.
No, it was like I had to go to Antioch Police Department, which, to my understanding, is the closest police department to Kenosha.
So the other thing I want to take note of that people are just ignoring throughout this case is that Kyle actually attempted to turn himself into the Kenosha police twice. The first time he walked up to the line with his hands off the rifle, and he came up to a cop and he ended up getting pepper sprayed. Now, I think the reason why the cop pepper sprayed Kyle, because Kyle said, "I just shot someone," was because they didn't understand, and maybe they heard him say somebody just shot someone and they just didn't want him approaching. So this is a miscommunication. Obviously, if you're expecting a violent shooter somewhere out there and a kid comes up to you, hands off the rifle, which is what these militia people do all the time to show the police that they're not a threat, you don't think this person's a shooter. Also, there were other gunshots being fired at the time that Kyle was approaching. The police clearly didn't see what was happening, so the idea that the police let him go because white supremacy, bro, as Twitter media actually says, is just crazy and ridiculous. It's a chaotic situation. His hands are off the gun. You're still hearing shots. He's walking over to the police calmly, and then he gets pepper sprayed in the face. But after that, Kyle tried to turn himself in at the Kenosha police station. But the thing is because of the context of the George Floyd riots, where they burned down many Minneapolis police stations, they were barricaded off to protect from that exact scenario. So Kyle could not turn himself in. So he went to the closest police station that he had, which was the Antioch police station in Illinois. This is the crossing of state lines, him going to turn himself in, which I find amazing because there's a part of this where his mom, in mommy mode, doesn't want him to turn himself in because she thinks she's going to lose her son.
What'd your parents say when you called them and told them what had happened?
I didn't call my mom after I saw her, and she was in shock. She was like, she wanted to go into hiding, and I said, no, the right thing to do would be to turn myself in. I didn't do anything wrong.
And Kyle stands up to him. By the way, this isn't just Kyle saying this now. Dominic Black, who was a witness for the prosecution, mentioned this in his testimony. Kyle wanted to turn himself in. So within an hour of the shooting, Kyle was in the Antioch Police Department turning himself in. He was arrested formally at 6 a.m., which is why the prosecutor's like, you went home and turned yourself in hours later. It's like, no, he turned himself in, but they decided to arrest him formally at 6 a.m. So Kyle did the right thing throughout. And that's one of the things you notice about Kyle throughout this whole interview is his level of calmness. And he gives a reason why he's so calm that is just reflective of a better level of maturity than people have given this kid credit for because he's so baby-faced.
Why are you so calm?
I'm a naturally calm person. I find it to be a problem when people are overreacting because things are out of our control. So I try not to deal with that.
Huh. I mean, just for the...
Believe me, on the inside, I'm freaking out.
Well, you must be. I mean, for the record, you just got acquitted.
Yeah.
I mean, like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing I noticed, that you seem very calm. You don't seem like someone who's just been through had his mind blown.
Yeah, on the inside, I'm freaking out, but the best thing you can do, you freak out, everybody else freaks out. It's like a chain reaction.
Yes.
So the best thing I can do is stay calm.
That's 100% true and a very mature take, and honestly, a take of a medical professional. That's the kind of attitude that these people have. The idea that if you panic, then people around you who are dependent on you are also going to panic. Now, I know Kyle's no medic like Gage Grosskreutz, who treated nobody and had an illegal concealed carry and chased down Kyle, even though Kyle told him he was going to the police and pointed a gun at a kid's head for no reason. But Kyle has the attitude, so I wish him luck going forward in whatever career path that he wants to pursue. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's going to be able to have a normal life after this, the way that the mainstream media has tarnished his name and savaged him repeatedly. But that is a really good, mature attitude to have. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the quote that has angered a ton of people.
Why do you think people were burning car source? What does that have to do with civil rights?
I don't know. I think it was opportunists taking advantage of the BLM movement. I agree with the BLM movement. This case has nothing to do with race. It never had anything to do with race. It had to do with the right to self-defense.
Right.
I'm not a racist person. I support the BLM movement.
So do I like this? No. Do I agree with this? No. Am I angry at Kyle Rittenhouse? No. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm not angry at him for saying this. And the first reason is this follow-up right here.
I agree everybody has the right to protest and assemble, but I do not agree that people have the right to burn down. I don't appreciate that people are burning down American cities to try to spread their message. I think there's other ways to go around and do that.
Well, I agree with that completely.
So what Kyle appears to be saying here is that he supports peaceful protests and not riots. But the thing is, Black Lives Matter, the idea, the organization, and the people behind it support the riots. They downplay the riots, or they excuse the riots, or they pin the riots on right-wing people. That's what Al Sharpton did in the recent MSNBC breakdown video that we were covering. Remember, John Oliver put a morbidly obese black woman on TV after the Minneapolis riots to scream into the camera about how we don't own anything, and you did this to us so we could loot and riot because civil rights or whatever. That was a thing that actually happened. John Oliver basically leads the mainstream media around by the nose. The Twitterati follow him for everything that he does and basically worship the guy, and he was playing somebody who was embracing and justifying the riots. So Kyle's just basically saying he supports peaceful protests and all that. And I know he said some other things that are cringe, that about how if he was a person of color, imagine how he would have been treated. No, Kyle, the only thing that would have hurt you is being you without the video evidence, because the right wing would not have backed you if it was your word against the Antifa thugs and communists who were saying that you attacked out of nowhere and you did it and you were 100% bad. The video saved you in this instance. Black people have no problem using self-defense in this nation. Nobody cares about black people committing crimes in this nation, especially during the course of riots. There have been multiple different deaths, murders, and all kinds of mayhem in this nation, and the only one who has gotten a huge amount of attention has been you. I mean, the right wing tried to boost up the David Dorn story. They tried to pump it up, but you got all this negative attention along with the McCloskeys who were defending their home. because you're a white conservative or white perceived conservative. The McCloskeys were actually Democrats. They were defense attorneys. They just didn't want their property to be stolen or destroyed. So that made them evil, racist, white ringers, white ringers. Yes, I'm stumbling on the words. I'm doing the jank thing where I confuse white and right wingers because jank makes them the same thing. But yeah, that's the reason you're getting attention, because you're white. If you were not white, if you were a Black Lives Matter rioter, nobody would have cared. They would have downplayed, excused, or if you were killed by Joseph Rosenbaum, they would have just pinned everything on him and said, oh, he's not even with us. He's just somebody who got let out of a mental hospital, history of raping 5 boys, convicted for it. And by the way, multiple other allegations in those complaints that he was not convicted of. No, it's nothing. The reason they don't like you is because you're white and you're perceived to be conservative, even if you're not that intelligent about politics specifically. Which, by the way, that's the reading that I get from Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Kyle isn't intelligent. I'm not saying that he doesn't have a good head on his shoulders overall. But think about the things that led people to believe that Kyle Rittenhouse was a right-winger, because they were looking for them and they were trying to skew everything possible to do so. Kyle had a Blue Lives Matter thing on one of his social media posts. This was a kid who wanted to be a cop. It is perfectly reasonable to assert that maybe he wasn't leaning right-wing or answering BLM. He was just saying Blue Lives Matter because he wanted to be a cop, and that's something that other people who like cops or were cops were in fact promoting. What about the Proud Boys thing? Remember, Kyle went and took pictures with the Proud Boys and he held up the OK sign, and the media reported it as Kyle meeting with white supremacists and throwing up a white supremacist sign. Well, here's the thing that I just learned recently. That meeting was set up by Kyle's previous attorneys who looked like they were trying to benefit off of him financially. Now, I need to state the obvious and point out that the OK sign is not a white nationalist sign or a white supremacist sign, and the Proud Boys aren't a white nationalist, white supremacist, or even racist organization. All that's made up. But the meeting was set up by Kyle's attorney. He didn't even know who the Proud Boys were. In fact, the inciting incident allegedly for Kyle firing his original set of attorneys is that they flew him to Miami, didn't tell him what the purpose was, and then they told him he had to meet the leader of the Proud Boys. Kyle felt uncomfortable based on the backlash he got previously, so he called his mom, and his mom told him to get on a flight, come back, and that's when they relieved their previous attorneys of their duty. So the very association, the Proud Boys, this evil organization that's not evil, not racist, or anything like that, was the thing that apparently got the Rittenhouses to get rid of those attorneys. So they have the story backwards in every conceivable possible way, and it's absolutely insane. And finally, let's say I'm wrong about Kyle. Let's say Kyle is very politically savvy, and he's actually low-key a far leftist. He's actually a communist that supports Black Lives Matter because black people are victimized all the time by evil, racist white cops descending from the heavens to kill them just for being black, even though they didn't commit any crimes, and the mere mention of disproportionate crime would make Kyle's head explode. It is still moral and justified for people to come out in defense and support of Kyle Rittenhouse, because this was never about ideology. This was never about politics of the individual Kyle Rittenhouse. People projected their views on him, but again, let's project those views of leftism on him and look at the case and look at how the left tried to turn this case into an overarching political narrative against the Second Amendment, against the right to self-defense, against the rights of due process, and against the self-defense law specifically in the state of Wisconsin, which they are now actively working to change to make it more difficult for innocent Wisconsinites to defend themselves from attackers. Not everything is about the politics of the person that we're talking about. Not everything is about where they fall on the political spectrum. Think about what they're saying when they want to change Wisconsin state law in terms of self-defense. In Wisconsin, they don't have a duty to retreat. Kyle Rittenhouse retreated anyway, which means that Kyle would have been covered in virtually every state in the union. If they want to change the law to make it so that Kyle Rittenhouse would be convicted, somebody who fled, somebody who retreated until it was his last possible option, they want to change the law to abolish self-defense completely. And yes, no matter who you are in the political spectrum, no matter who is the catalyst for the left moving in this direction, I will defend that person when it's clear, obvious, and moral what what they did in terms of self-defense in the situation that they were found in. But hey, those are just my thoughts. I happen to be 100% correct in terms of morality and foundational thinking because of my 10,000 IQ. But if you disagree with me, feel free to let me know your wrong opinion down in the comments below. What did you think of the Tucker Carlson interview? What did you think of Kyle Rittenhouse's overall demeanor? Are you that bothered by him saying he supports this, but also only peaceful protests and not riots when they're all about the riots? Let me know all the opinions. I'll look them over. As usual, you guys know the deal. If you like the video, you show them by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social medias. They are linked in the description of this video. You can support me via the support links, also linked in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Tucker Carlson interviewing Kyle Rittenhouse. Till next time.